Time for review. Last week we learned from chapter 24 that Abraham instructed his servant Eliezer to go back to Abraham's homeland, that's in Haran, and see if he can find a wife for Isaac. When the servant arrived at Abraham's ancestral home, then he stand and pray at the well, remember, for God guidance. And he sees a beautiful woman named Rebecca. Soon, the negotiation for Rebecca's marriage went smoothly. After a long journey back to Canaan, Isaac meets Rebecca, and he takes Rebecca as his wife. And we conclude that God doesn't always work supernaturally. He uses natural means as well, right? And tonight, we will continue our story of Abraham's journey. And the title of our lesson is How to Grow Old and Die. Genesis 25 verses 1 to 11. Yes, our title is called How to Grow Old and Die. I know we don't like to think about old age, and we try to look young as long as possible. You know, people will do everything just to look young, right? From the way they dress to what? Plastic surgery. But the fact is, all of us will grow old and die. And most of us cannot hide it when it happens. Okay. So instead of trying to stay young or look young, why don't we give it a thought on how to grow old and die? Tonight, in our lesson, we will learn from Abraham on how to grow old and die. Our passage is from Genesis 25, verses 1 to 11. And we'll divide our lesson into two parts, all right? All right, let's take a look. The first part, how to grow old and die. And the first part, we'll talk about the decision of Abraham. What decision does he make? The death of Abraham. So there's two things, right? Very simple. So let's start our part one lesson, okay? Let me read to you the decisions of Abraham. Abraham took another wife whose name was Keturah. All right, that's our verse 1. The last chapter of Abraham's life begins with what? Marrying with another wife, right? With another wife, whose name was Keturah. Okay. If Abraham's second marriage was after death of Sarah, like what chapter 23 said, then he was 137 years old, okay? And definitely he's an old man, all right? Okay. By the standard of those days, he is old, okay? But the question is, why did Abraham get married when he was old already? Okay. Did he begin to feel loneliness and isolation? Well, Abraham might have been lonely, but the reason he got married again, I think it has something to do with the will of God. Remember in Genesis chapter 17, verse 4? God had promised and said to him, "You shall be the father of a multitude of nations." You shall be a father of multitude of nations, plural. So, in obedience to God, Abraham got married again in order to have more children and be the father of many nations. All right? Little is known about Keturah in this story, but what we know in verse 6 and 1 Chronicles chapter 1, verse 32, he said Keturah is called as concubine by the author. Okay. Let's continue verses 2 to 4. On verses 2 to 4, let me read it to you. She bore him, that means Keturah bore Abraham's son called Simran, Joksan, Midan, and then Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. Joksan is Keturah's son, become father of Sheba and Dedan. And then the son of Dedan were Ashurim, Letushim, and Luamin. The sons of Midian were Ephah, Epher, Henak, Abida, and Eldeah. All these were the children of Keturah. Oh, now, these were the other sons of Abraham from Keturah. That's a lot, right? He got a son with Sarah, only Isaac, right? And here he got a lot. So, okay, let me show you some diagrams so it'll be easier to understand. Here you go. Abraham married again Keturah, and they have how many sons? 6. Joksan, Simran, Midan, Ishbak, Shua, and Midian. Okay, and then Josan had 2 sons. So it is Abraham's grandson. So Josan had 2 sons, Sheba and Dedan. And then Dedan had 3 children, Ashurites, Luitites, and Lumites. So Abraham has son from Keturah and grandson from Keturah and great-grandson here. You can see that? Okay. And on this side, Midian, we have Ephah, Epher, Henak, Abida, and Eldeah. Right? There. So more clear, right? You have 6 sons, 7 great-grandchildren, and then 3 great-grandchildren. Wow, huge family, okay? Basically, this all become what? Arabian tribes, right? Verse on 25, verse 6. So the descendant of Midian are mentioned frequently in the Old Testament. That's why they put this one in to show at least we will know where this came from, Midian, right? Okay. They become the enemy of Israel. So there's a reason why the author emphasized this one, okay? There's a lot of them, but the emphasis is Midian, okay? Here, we have enough information given to demonstrate that God made Abraham the father of many nations and tribes. Now, a lot of nations now, right? Okay, let's continue on verses 5 to 6. Let me read to you. Here, Abraham, he say, gave all he had to Isaac. That means all his asset to Isaac, all right? But to the sons of his concubines, Abraham gave gift. You see, give. And while he was still living, look, while he was still living, he did this. He sent them away from his son Isaac, eastward to the east country. Just Genesis 35, 5 to 6. What they're saying in verse 6b said, while he was still living. My friend, if you want, you have to do it while you're living, right? So Abraham disposed all of his property while he's still living. This is an important lesson that we need to learn from Abraham, right? Okay. While he was still alive, he divided his property among all the children so that there would be no dispute after his death. See, frequently people tell me of their personal experience after losing their parents. You know what? There is no will or trust in place. As a result, what happened? They fight and sue for years with their sibling over who gets what. That's a big problem. So Abraham showed us an example while he was still alive. We need to prepare. So parents or grandparents, in order to avoid sibling disputes over your property, please go to see your lawyer and have them prepare a will or a trust for you. Very important, okay? This is a smart way to do it, okay? And verses 5 to 6, Abraham gave gift to his children through his concubine. You see that? But to the son of his concubine, Abraham gave a gift, right? To whom? Concubines, plural. So who author is pointing whom? Hagar, remember? Plus Ishmael, and Keturah plus her 6 children. So for them, he gave gift. The rest of it, the property, everything is to Isaac. He inherit. So all his possession and wealth belong to Isaac. Well, you might ask, why Abraham get all to Isaac, right? Okay. Remember in Genesis chapter 17, verses 18 to 19, Abraham asked God, so why not let Ishmael be my heir? At the time, Isaac's not born yet, right? But God said, no, your wife Sarah will bear you a son and you will name him Isaac. Remember that? Then God said, I will keep my covenant with him. See, he's an elect, chosen, Isaac with him and with his descendant forever. Oh, that's the reason. So Abraham remembered all these things. As an old man, although he's old, Abraham was still concerned about the will of God. When God told him that, he remembered that he will maintain everything and will do Isaac. That's through Isaac descendant that God will have a covenant. See that? Okay. So Abraham had the responsibility to ensure that the blessing of God, of God's plan, what? Would pass to Isaac, not Ishmael. They give enough property or money to Ishmael and Keturah children. Enough. But that's as a gift. Okay. All right. Now let's go to our part 1 summary. In our part 1 summary, we said Abraham got married. Abraham had more sons. Abraham provided for all. So this is the decision that Abraham had made. First, he decided to get married again to Keturah. See? And second one, Abraham had more sons, total of 6 sons, 7 grandsons, and 3 great-grandsons, right? From Keturah. And the third one, Abraham decided what? To provide it for all of them, right? But he made Isaac his heir as God planned it. See that? He remembered God. All of them is their sons, right? But God chosen Isaac. So he makes sure that it goes to Isaac. See? We need to think about God. Okay, let's continue our part 2 lesson. The death of Abraham. Now we're going to talk about the death of Abraham. All right? Okay, let's see. These are the days of the years of Abraham's life. He say this is how old is he? He died 175 years old. He died at 175 years. Abraham breathed his last and died in a good old age. Wow. An old man and full of years. Oh. And was gathered to his people. Genesis 25, verses 7 to 8. Obviously, at 175 years old, Abraham drew his last breath and died. Isaac would have been at the time about 75 years old already. Okay. Abraham lived a very long time, long life, 175. But more importantly, he lived a full life. That's what he said. He lived a full life. The expression of full of years, see, full of years of verse 8, it implies what? That all that he wants and all his expectations has been satisfied. He satisfied of his life. Let me give an example. What do we mean by that? When a person, after a large dinner, right, and puts away his plate from him and said, I'm full. That means he cannot eat anymore, right? His he enjoyed, he's happy, he's satisfied. Okay. By the same token, at the end of Abraham's life, he was completely satisfied. Okay, wow, that's what we want to live. When we grow up and before you die, you want to die what? Completely satisfied. In Genesis 15:15, God promised Abraham that he would die in peace and be buried at a good old age. You see that? God promised that. Now, and Abraham believed God promises, according to Hebrew chapter 11, verse 9. And here we can see that God was faithful to do what he promised. You see that? He died, what? Completely satisfied. You see, he grow old and die satisfied. That should be our goal too, right? Okay. What do the author means by Abraham was gathered to his people? Yeah, you see that? And after he died, Abraham was gathered to his people. What do we mean by that? Right? I take a look, I search it. Right. First, it cannot refer to his burial with his ancestor because the only one who buried at the time is Sarah. So, who is those people? So, well, in here, it denotes the what? The reunion in Sheol with friends who had died before him. So he went down to Sheol. This is clearly an indication of life after death. That's what they're talking about. The Bible says he was gathered to his people. They meet again. We have a life after death. You got it now? Okay. Remember, Jesus called the place of departed saint, remember? He said he went back to Abraham's bosom. That's in Luke 16:22. So that's where Abraham is now, right? In Abraham's bosom. Okay. Let's continue on verses 9 to 10. Let me read it again to you. Isaac and Ishmael. Now, we haven't seen Ishmael for a while, right? Now, it appeared. Isaac and Ishmael, that's Abraham's sons, buried him in the cave of Machpelah. Remember, he bought a property there to bury Sarah. That's called a cave of Machpelah. In the field of Ephron, the son of the Zohar and Hittite, east of Mamre. The field that Abraham purchased from the Hittites, right? There, Abraham was buried with Sarah, his wife. He buried Sarah there. Now, his two sons, Isaac and Ishmael, buried him side of Sarah. Okay, Isaac and Ishmael buried their father together, right? They come together. This is very important. Why the author mentioned Isaac, then Ishmael. Remember, Abraham sent Hagar and Ishmael away, right? Because Sarah said, cast them away. And now they are together here. You can see here, right? Okay. You know what? Maybe Abraham's death brought them together for the first time again. They reconciled. So they buried Abraham in the cave of Machpelah that Abraham purchased to bury Sarah before. Okay. So Abraham was the second person to be buried in the cave of Machpelah. First is Sarah. Now we have Abraham. Okay. Let's continue to our last verse. That's verse 11. Let's take a look. It said, after the death of Abraham, look, now you see, it said, God blessed Isaac. Abraham died already, right? But God blessed Isaac, the next generation. Isaac, that's his son. And Isaac settled at Bir Lahai Roi. Okay. See, God, on verse 11, God promised to continue Abraham's line through Isaac, right? Here we see after Abraham's death, God blessed Isaac. And why? Because Abraham believed God and walked in his will all his life until his last breath. Okay, my friend. This is the way to grow old and to die, is to endure to the very end. Okay, even Abraham died, but God's word continue to bless his son Isaac. You see, do you want after you, God, instead of blessing you, after you continue to bless your son, your great grandson, all the generation down? Then it start from you. So do you want God to continue bless you and your children? Then it start from you. All right? All right, let's go to our part 2 summary. Let's see. The death of Abraham. We talked, Abraham died. We learned that. Abraham was buried by his 2 sons, Isaac and Ishmael. God blessed Isaac. You see, Abraham died in good old age and completely satisfied. See that? He grew old. He made decision. Now, when he died, he was satisfied. He was fully and completely satisfied. Abraham was buried by his son, Isaac and Ishmael. I know I heard about at that time a lot, COVID, remember? A lot of parents died and they even see their parents or in the hospital that they pass away. And no one can bury them. And they have to be, give it to the funeral parlor to take care. See that? So it's a blessing to be buried by your children. Okay. God blessed Isaac after Abraham's death. Abraham died, but God now continue. Instead of blessing Abraham, now he blessed Isaac. Huh? Okay. Okay, let's go to our conclusion. Let's see what's the point we need to learn here. Let me read it to you. The way to grow old is to walk in the blank of God. The way to grow old is to walk in the blank of God. Okay? What is your answer? What do you think is the answer? Make a guess. Okay, let's find out what's the answer. The way to grow old is to walk in the will of God, my friend. My brother and sister. You see, as an old man, Abraham was still what? Concerned about the will of God. He remembered whatever God promises or told him to do. So even after he died, God continued to bless his son, Isaac. Go from Abraham, then now to Isaac. Okay? There is one commentator sum up the spiritual truth of this passage. It's very good by saying this. God's servant must do all they can to ensure that God's program of blessing continues from generation to generation without interruption. Wow, how true it is, right? Okay. It's never too late to start doing the will of God. If you know that's the will of God, do it. All right? Okay. All right. This concludes our lesson for tonight. Thank you for your time and God bless you.